In modern discussions about the deconstruction of the superhero genre, it is widely believed that the characters of the boys' universe are so terrible because it is simply a realistic look at people with unlimited power. We are told that absolute power corrupts absolutely, that corporate capitalism would turn saviors into soulless marketing products, and that Compound V, along with laboratory upbringing, initially broke their psyche. All of this is undoubtedly true. But what if we are overlooking one crucial fundamental detail? A detail that at first glance seems like just an outdated cliché from old comic books, but is actually the main restraining mechanism for any godlike entity.
I am your god.
Today I want to invite you to consider a theory that answers the question: what is the main reason for the total moral decay and psychological instability of the supes in the world of the boys? To truly understand the depth of this problem, let's transport ourselves for a moment into the distant past. In ancient Rome, there was one incredibly wise, deeply psychological tradition aimed at preserving the sanity of great people. When an outstanding Roman general achieved a grand victory over the enemies of the empire and entered the city in triumph on his chariot, he was met with absolute adoration. People threw flowers at him, thousands of voices chanted his name, and in those moments, the general literally felt equal to the immortal gods. But so that this triumpher would not lose touch with reality, so that his ego would not inflate to scales threatening the very existence of the Republic, a specially assigned slave always stood behind him on the chariot. The task of this person was, time after time, monotonously and tirelessly, to whisper into the triumpher's ear the exact same phrase.
Memento mori.
Remember that you are mortal. Remember that under this golden armor hides an ordinary human being made of flesh and blood. Remember that you are not a deity, and this triumph is merely a fleeting episode in your human life. For most of the classic superheroes we grew up with, the function of this very slave whispering the saving memento mori is performed by their secret identity, their civilian alter ego. These characters are, essentially, modern gods. They save entire universes. They are capable of flying, moving planets, and they receive a level of fan adoration that even the most popular pop stars of our real world could never dream of. But what happens after the world is saved? When Superman returns to Metropolis, he is forced to put on ridiculous glasses, a baggy suit, and become Clark Kent. And this Clark Kent is just another ordinary guy trying not to be late for the morning editorial meeting at the Daily Planet, listening to the shouts of his irritable boss Perry White, and standing in line for coffee. When Spider-Man takes off his mask after defeating Dr. Octopus, he becomes Peter Parker again, an ordinary, unremarkable resident of New York in a crowd of equally faceless citizens. He is not entitled to any special privileges. He still cannot scrape together money to rent his tiny apartment. He is afraid of disappointing Aunt May, and he experiences awkwardness in communicating with girls.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Even Bruce Wayne, despite his inexhaustible billions, is forced to attend endless boring board meetings at Wayne Enterprises, manage the company, maintain the image of a flighty playboy at charity galas. All of these routine, absolutely banal, and grounded aspects of existence prevent their ego from spiraling out of control. The secret identity forces these powerful beings to interact with the world of ordinary people on equal terms day after day. It serves as their psychological anchor. It teaches them what it is like to be weak, to be unnoticed, to be a part of society rather than tower over it. Without this anchor, without the opportunity to just be an ordinary person, divine power would inevitably and very quickly lead to a god complex. And this is exactly where we come to the chilling reality of the series The Boys. The superheroes in this universe never experience this kind of grounding. Practically every one of them, especially the members of the Elite Seven, work as saviors of humanity full-time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never step out of their stage persona because they simply have no opportunity to do so. Their public persona is not their own choice. It is a corporate brand entirely owned by Vought International. Let's take a close look at their behavior in everyday life. These people are never truly off. Look at Homelander.
Ashley! Look at me!
Does he ever take off his suit at all? This cape, these eagles on the shoulders, this star-spangled design, it is not just his uniform for heroics. He wears it at public appearances, at secret corporate meetings, in his private quarters, during conversations with his son, even in the most intimate and perverted moments of his private life. This suit has long since become his skin. He has no Clark Kent of his own. He has nowhere to hide from the image of Homelander because Homelander, the only thing left of him. He doesn't know what it's like to just be John. He doesn't know what it's like when people don't look at you as a deity, with fear or blind adoration. And how do the others behave? The Deep, while in disgrace and trying to make ends meet, goes to a regular grocery store to shop. But what does he look like? He doesn't put on regular sweatpants or a faceless hoodie to blend in with the crowd. He just throws some ridiculous jacket over his tight-fitting superhero suit. A-Train, seemingly, often wears casual streetwear, but if you look closely, you will notice that it is always clothes made in the exact same brand color scheme of his heroic alter ego, blue and white tracksuits that maintain his status. None of them are capable of living even a single day the life of an ordinary person unknown to anyone.
You want an autograph or something?
None of them stand in line at the bank fearing that their loan won't be approved. Their psyche is under constant, unceasing pressure from their own monumental exceptionalism. What happens to the human brain if you deprive it of the opportunity to hide, relax, and stop playing a role? The brain will begin to reject reality. If we analyze the entire roster of the seven, we will notice a very interesting telling pattern. In this group of psychopaths, sadists, and corporate puppets, there are, or were, characters who preserved at least some remnants of humanity, conscience, and empathy. Mainly, these are Starlight and Queen Maeve. What unites these two women in contrast to the rest of the team? Both of them had a life independent of Vought. They had attempts to maintain a secret identity and personal relationships outside the reach of the corporate machine. Let's start with Starlight, our main point of support in the world of soups. At the beginning of the series, Annie January is the only person who desperately and stubbornly tries to preserve her original identity as the girl next door. Her real life, her relationship with Faith, her moral principles were formed not within the walls of a sterile laboratory, but in society, among people. Remember her dates with Huey. She puts on a wig, a simple, unremarkable jacket, jeans, and goes bowling. She does everything possible to blend into the crowd, to be just Annie for at least a couple of hours, rather than the glowing superstar Starlight. This opportunity to secretly take off the wig of her publicity is her only way not to go insane in the atmosphere of total cynicism of the Vought Tower, and that is precisely why the corporate management tries so aggressively to destroy her personal life. They force her to change her modest costume to a revealing, provocative outfit. They try to control her every word. Corporations do not need personalities. They need recognizable assets. Annie remains the most adequate and moral character only thanks to her titanic struggle for the right to sometimes go out into the street without a mask. And now let's look at Queen Maeve. Her story is the tragedy of what happens when the corporate machine completely grinds down a hero's secret life. We know that once, Maeve was not the cynical, broken, and alcohol-dependent woman she appears to be at the beginning of the story. In her youth, she too was an idealist, sincerely wishing to help people.
I really did care. And then I started giving pieces of myself away, and I guess I gave away everything.
And she had her own anchor, a normal human girl, Elena. The relationship with Elena was that safe haven where Maggie Shaw, Maeve's real name, could return, tired of the ostentation and hypocrisy. It was her connection to reality. But what happened next? The corporate system and Homelander's manipulation sucked Maeve in entirely. Vought exposes her personal life, rudely drags Elena under the camera lenses, monetizes her sexual orientation, and turns the most sacred, intimate part of Maeve's life into a PR stunt, into just another item in an advertising campaign. As soon as her secret life vanished, as soon as the line between Maggie and Queen Maeve was erased, she lost her last hope. She plunged into apathy, because a person without a private, hidden space no longer belongs to themselves. Black Noir represents an absolutely different, but no less terrifying form of this loss of identity. At first glance, he never takes off his mask, which means he hides his face from the public. But the paradox lies in the fact that under Black Noir's mask, there is no longer a human being. His secret identity, his real past, was physically and psychologically beaten out of him, literally, after a trauma. He has nothing left but the function assigned to him by the corporation. He does not lead a secret life in the evenings. He does not go to the movies, and he does not hang out with friends. His public costume became his grave, a prison inside which a broken mind is locked. Of course, an inquiring mind might object. Are we not confusing cause and effect? Indeed, one could say that the heroes in this world are devoid of humanity not at all because they have no alter ego. Perhaps they have no alter ego precisely because they are initially devoid of humanity and totally detached from reality. Let's break down this position, because it makes the concept we are discussing even deeper and more terrifying. Why do superheroes in classic plots hide their names at all? There are three fundamental reasons. First, to protect their loved ones. Aunt May or Lois Lane would become perfect targets for any villain if they found out who is hiding under the mask. Second, to protect the hero himself from unexpected attacks at moments when he is not ready for battle, for example, when he is just drinking coffee in a cafeteria or sleeping. And third, to create a certain mystical, frightening image in the eyes of enemies, as Batman does, turning himself from a man into a symbol of urban terror. But apply these 3 reasons to the 7. Why don't they need to create a mysterious image in Province? Well, because the vast majority of them have no one they truly love, and who is not a part of the Vought Corporation. They are too selfish, self-absorbed, or so traumatized by their laboratory childhood that they simply did not form healthy social attachments. Why don't they hide to protect themselves? Because they are infinitely arrogant. They possess immense, almost insurmountable power, and those few threats that they cannot handle physically are quickly and ruthlessly eliminated by the corporation's lawyers, hitmen, and PR managers. And finally, why do they need to create a mysterious image if Vought has already written scripts for them, filmed blockbusters about them, and released comic books that completely control how society perceives them?
Your sick posts and your hateful memes. Especially the memes.
Supes are exempt from all logical, moral, and tactical reasons why a creature with superpower should want to lead a double life. Their innate sociopathy, cultivated by corporate capitalism, is the foundation, and their abandonment of a secret identity becomes the nail in the coffin of their humanity. It is a perfect vicious circle. Sociopathy rids them of the need to have ordinary people as loved ones, and the absence of a secret identity prevents them from ever starting relationships with those very people or learning empathy. The fact that Vought encourages them to live their role 24/7 is a genius, sinister move. Capitalism in the world of the boys has consumed the very concept of personality. These creatures are not just employees, and not even just stars. They are patented intellectual properties that know how to fly and shoot lasers from their eyes. If Homelander had an alter ego, say, a bank clerk John Smith, he would have time and space to ask himself, what do I want? Not what the Vought board of directors wants from me, not what my crazy fans on the internet expect from me, but what does John Smith want? But John Smith does not exist. There is only Homelander. And when Homelander is left alone with himself, in the darkness of his bedroom, he meets only emptiness there. He knows that if Vought stops supporting his rating, if the fans turn away from him, he will disappear, because behind this shiny facade there is no one. He projects this existential horror of his own emptiness onto the whole world through cruelty, sadism, and an insatiable, pathological thirst for absolute control and worship. Many critics of the genre recall the philosophical monologue about Superman delivered by David Carradine's character in Quentin Tarantino's film Kill Bill. The character says that Superman is unique among superheroes.
Superhero mythology is there's the superhero and there's the alter ego. Batman is actually Bruce Wayne. Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. When that character wakes up in the morning, he's Peter Parker. He has to put on a costume to become Spider-Man. And it is in that characteristic that Superman stands alone. Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. His alter ego is Clark Kent.
That is the costume Superman puts on to blend in with us. And Clark Kent's behavior, a weak, hesitant coward, is how Superman, according to Tarantino, views the entire human race.
What Kent wears, the glasses, the business suit, that's the costume. Clark Kent is how Superman views us.
If we transfer this brilliant analogy into the realities of the Boys universe, we see how the creators of the series darkly deconstruct this myth. Homelander is also a Superman who wakes up as Superman, but unlike the son of Kryptonians, who was raised by loving adoptive parents on a farm in Kansas, having been taught to value every living soul, Homelander sees no point in even pretending to be Clark Kent. He doesn't have his own version of a weak, insecure human that he could play for disguise, because he does not consider humans worthy of even a parody. He doesn't want to blend in with us. Without this human filter, without an alter ego, all of his incredible power turns not into the gift of a protector, but into the curse of a selfish deity.
Oh God. The only man in the sky is me.
And let's be honest, this problem finds an eerie reflection in our own, absolutely real, non-cartoonish world as well. The lack of a boundary between the private and the public, is the bane of the modern era of celebrities, influencers, and bloggers. We see many stories of how child stars or young actors break down psychologically because from an early age they are surrounded by agents, producers, and paparazzi. Their personal life is put on display, their every step is monetized, and their teenage mistakes become the property of the global press. They cannot just go to a store without risking ending up on the covers of tabloids. As a result, many of them lose their moral compass, fall into addictions, or ruin their own and others' lives. But an ordinary famous actor, driven to the edge by press attention, can at most cause a scandal in a restaurant or smash a reporter's camera. What happens when the same kind of life, devoid of private boundaries, is led by a creature capable of cutting a passenger plane in half with a single glance? When a person becomes a living brand, when their identity is 100% fused with what the public expects from them, they lose empathy. Those around them cease to be subjects to them. They turn into objects, into likes, into an approval rating, into annoying obstacles. In regular naive comic books, the concept of a secret identity was often presented as a fun trope that brings a smile. The absurdity of no one recognizing Superman just because he put on thick-rimmed glasses and slightly changed his tone of voice became the subject of thousands of jokes. It often seemed to us that masks were just a way to add a bit of detective work and romantic drama to the plot about how a hero hides his main secret from his girlfriend. But the universe built by the authors of The Boys rips away the veil from this naivety and shows us the cold, psychological truth. A secret identity is not a fun element of the genre dragged in by its hair. It is the most important, most critically necessary system of checks and balances in the entire superhero epic. It is the only thing that keeps a deity on the sinful earth. By removing the secret identity from the equation, Vought Corporation did not just gain absolute control over its heroes in 24/7 mode, it deprived them of the opportunity to be human. They were bred in test tubes like laboratory mice, raised by marketers like living toys, and turned into maniacs by the fact that no one, ever, under any circumstances allowed them to take off this damn suit. Without this saving, daily grounding that reminds them of their own vulnerability, these creatures are doomed to wander forever in the labyrinth of their sick ego, hating the very fragile and weak human race that they are contractually obligated to call their fans. Ultimately, the absence of secret identities in the world of The Boys is not just a stylistic feature or the result of the hero's laziness. It is a brilliant, profound commentary by the authors on how sociopathy is formed under the weight of fame and corporate control. The secret alter ego acts as that very slave from the triumpher's chariot, quietly whispering, "Remember that you are mortal." In the Vought Tower, there is no one who would dare to whisper these words. And that is exactly why their gods are so terrible.